Today on Trucks, it's a red, white, and blue special as the Army takes us for a wild ride in their awesome Bradley fighting vehicle. Then in the shop, Stacey shows us how to smooth those bumpers on sport and street trucks. And finally, your questions get answered as we pick from the viewer's mail pile. That's all today on Trucks.
Welcome to Trucks. Man, do we have a cool surprise for you today. In the world of off-road, you've got some really capable trucks. Got the Jeep, got the Toyota Land Cruiser, Ford had the Bronco, International Scout. But what would you say if I told you, I think I found the ultimate off-road vehicle? Something that'll handle the biggest rocks, go through the biggest mud hole, deepest river, anything. Well, you'd probably say, man, only a tank can do all that. Well, not exactly, but you're in the right ballpark. This is the Bradley fighting vehicle. First of all, what you're seeing here is not a vehicle that was used in World War II or Korea or Vietnam. No, no, no. The Bradley is what we use now, and it's a state-of-the-art fighting vehicle. And we're at the training facility in Smyrna, Tennessee, where they actually train soldiers to operate these things. Now, since Trucks is a show for gearheads, we're going to take you inside and show you the nuts and bolts of one of these things. And of course, later on, we'll take it out and show you what it's capable of. But first, here's a little background on the Bradley. Named in honor of World War II General Omar Bradley, this vehicle was designed to fill the void between the armored personnel carrier and a full-scale battle tank. And it was well proven in Desert Storm and compiled an impressive record in any type of terrain or situation. Do we have your attention? All right, let's check out the engine that powers this thing. All right, what we've got here is a 903 cubic inch Cummins turbo diesel, kicking out 500 horsepower and 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. You can imagine what that'd be like in a pickup. Man, talk about the ultimate crate engine. Now, you'll notice that the radiator is mounted here on top. It makes everything come out as one assembly. It makes it a lot easier on maintenance and service. The transmission sits right here in front of the engine, and the new ones are all electronically controlled, as opposed to this old system of levers and linkage. Now, the drive axles exit right out the sides here, and that puts the whole drivetrain, engine, transmission, all right here in the front. As you can see, this whole front section is removable, so everything can be pulled right out. Now, let's check out the part you're really curious about, and that's the weapons. Okay, this is where the recruits learn about the weapon system. Now, the main weapon on a Bradley is a 25mm cannon that'll shoot up to 220 of these things on full automatic a minute. Now, if you've never seen it, you can only imagine what kind of damage something like this will do. If this isn't enough, it's also got a rocket launcher up on the turret. Looks like a good souvenir to me. Driving the Bradley is really pretty simple. You have a brake pedal in the center with the accelerator beside it on the right. Up here is your gear selector for forward, reverse, high-low ranges. And for steering, instead of two levers like you might expect, you have a single steering yoke. Inside the turret is, of course, where the gunner and the commander sit. The gunner over here to the left, the commander over here to the right. And both have telescopic seats, so you can move in and out of the turret. Now, a couple really cool things worth noticing in here. All the controls for the turret, rotation left and right, elevation for the gun, is controlled right here with this joystick, very similar to a video game. Another thing worth mentioning, it's very tight in here. I am 6'1", and you can see I don't have a whole lot of room. Also, no matter which way you turn, you're going to hit metal, so a lot of bumps and bruises are very common when you're riding in a Bradley. Inside, the Bradley will carry about 9 soldiers, and that makes it a little bit bigger than the Ford Excursion, but not a lot. And everybody enters through a big steel door in the back. Now, the sides are layered in Kevlar, and that protects the soldiers from any kind of bullets or shrapnel that might make it through the hull. Then finally, you've got a fire suppression system that quickly puts out any fires. Now, in the past, the tank got its protection by how thick the armor plating was. Of course, that all changed when the shaped charge came out, because it was designed to blow through 4 or 5 inches of steel. So the Bradley uses a little different technology, and it's called reactive armor. This is how it works. You got big panels that bolt in along the sides and around the front. Now, each one of those panels has got an explosive charge in it. Now, when this thing takes a shot from a bazooka or something like that, the armor actually explodes out away from the vehicle, and that protects the people inside. I know that sounds crazy, but it really works. Well, that gives you a rare inside look at the design, the construction, the very nuts and bolts of a Bradley fighting vehicle. Now, I told you before, this could be the ultimate off-road vehicle, but you can't expect you to take my word for that without seeing this thing in motion. So after the break, I'm going to show you what these things can do. Stay with us.
After the break, Stacey's putting the pedal to the bulletproof metal as he goes for a spin in the Bradley. And if you survive that, later we'll show you the custom trick of smoothing bumpers.
Welcome back to Trucks. Now, if you're just joining us, well, you've missed a lot, because before the break, we took you through the mechanicals of this 30-ton, $1.6 million Bradley fighting vehicle. But you haven't missed the funnest part, and that's when we put this thing in motion. Yeah, we're going to drive it, and you better hold on. Now, the first thing that most people are curious about is the track system. How rough is it? What does it feel like? Will the tracks fall off? Well, throwing a track on a Bradley is not impossible, but it rarely ever happens due to the design of the system. Long metal studs are built into the center of the track, and they ride in deep grooves in the bogie wheels. This keeps the track from sliding off, even in tight turns. Speaking of turning, that is where the Bradley really shines. By reversing one track, it's able to turn in a 0 radius with a simple turn of the steering yoke from the driver. This makes the Bradley surprisingly agile in tight situations. For those of you that have ever driven a bulldozer, you know that they're extremely rough because they don't have any suspension. Bradley, on the other hand, has got suspension on each one of its bogie wheels that allows it to run about 50 miles an hour without knocking the teeth out of all the passengers. One trait that all tracked vehicles share when climbing a steep incline is the nose goes straight up in the air. Now on the Bradley, the driver completely loses sight of what's in front until the whole vehicle pitches forward, which makes for, shall we say, a lively ride for the guys inside. As you might have guessed, the Bradley is awesome in the mud because nothing gets traction like a tracked vehicle. About the only way you can get one of these stuck is to either high center it or bury it completely. Let me tell you, there is nothing like hitting a mud hole at 30 miles an hour in a 30-ton vehicle and feeling it drift sideways. Man. Now we had heard that the Bradley was fast, so we decided to stick our foot in it. Of course, this gave me a little bit of time to familiarize myself with the controls and the turret. The Bradley will run about 50 miles an hour flat out, and that's with or without that rather large tree branch that we somehow picked up and we didn't even know it was there. Driver, that's good. Well, I hope this gives you an idea just how amazing the Bradley fighting vehicle really is. We'd like to thank the Tennessee National Guard for giving us the chance to come out with a multi-million-dollar vehicle and put it through the paces for you. Now, is it the ultimate off-road vehicle? Well, that's for you to decide. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to mess with one. Don't make me push this button. All right, driver, let's move out. Oh, this is so cool!
When we come back, it's a lesson on smoothing out those bumpers while keeping some money in your pocket. Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back. One of the coolest things about building up a vehicle, whether it's new or old, is the fact that you can take it and personalize it and customize it to where there's nothing else like it on the road. Now this is especially true in the world of trucks, where you have chopping tops and suicide doors and sectioning bodies. These are all things that a builder can do to really make his truck stand out in a crowd. However, when you do a project like chopping a top, that's a big project. It takes a lot of time, a lot of skill, sometimes a lot of money. But not all customizing projects are like that. The one I have planned for you today is very simple, takes you just a couple hours, and literally only costs about 10 bucks. You're going to love this. It's how to smooth a bumper. All right, the first question is, why in the world would you want to smooth a bumper? Well, if you're going to reuse the bumper on your truck, chances are it's held in place with a carriage style bolt like this. You slide it down through the bumper, and of course the head protrudes on the outside. Now, if you cut that head off and weld up these holes, you're going to end up with a really nice smooth bumper that's going to look really cool once it's painted or chromed. The problem is, these bolts actually hold the bumper to the truck, so you're going to have to come up with some way to permanently mount these, and they need to be strong. This is how to do it. First, take your bolt and hacksaw the head off. Now make sure that you keep the square part of the bolt. Then, take a grinder and scuff up both sides of the old bumper. That way you'll have a good surface to weld to. Okay, time to weld. Now I know you want this helmet. Forget it. You need to make your own. All right, to weld your studs into the bumper, here's what you do. Set it into the hole and then tack it in place. Now you'll notice that I'm setting the stud a little bit below the surface. That way I can come in here and make a nice pool of weld. Then when I grind it off later on, I don't grind all the weld off and make it weaker. All right, that ought to hold it. Now take a thick washer, set it down on the stud, follow that with a nut. Just put it down finger tight. Now it's real important that this washer sits down flat against the bumper. You may have to bend it like we did. Now all you have to do is weld the washer to the bumper. The next step is to remove the nut, then come in here and weld the base of the bolt to the washer, and then finally finish up your welding here on the front. All right, what we've done here is make a much stronger mounting point for this bolt by welding on this washer. Now it does that by spreading out the load here on the head of the bolt. It also prevents those little dimple dents that usually happen when you bolt the bumper on. Now once you got your welding done, go ahead and grab the grinder and grind off the head of this weld. Now you need to go slow and be careful here because this is where you make it smooth. And if you grind off too much, you'll have to weld it back on. Okay, let's look at the difference. Here you've got an ugly hole. Here you've got a totally clean, totally smooth piece of bumper that's ready to be re-chromed or painted. But check this out. Got your mounting stud all tucked up inside, not a trace of it here on top. This is very trick, very subtle. It makes a huge difference in the overall look of the truck. Now the best part is this whole modification only costs the price of some nuts and bolts and washers. Of course you need a welder and a grinder, but this ought to show you that some of the best modifications come from here, not here. We'll be back after this.
Stay right there, because Stacey's explaining the science of fuel injection in its many forms. Next. And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
Okay, you've been working on your classic truck for a long time. You got the engine and transmission done, paint and interiors finished. Now you're ready to put on some cool side mirrors to finish it off. Well, you need to go to SoCal Speed Shop because they have got these really nice polished stainless steel swan neck style side mirrors. Now the swan neck design allows you to mount them below or above the window depending on your application, and you can get them in left or right hand side separately, or fork out $100 and get the pair. Either way, you won't be disappointed. When you're putting together a hot engine for your truck, nothing's quite as cool as multi-carbs. And that's usually not a problem, provided you're running a Chevy. But what if you want to build a Ford? Well, Edelbrock's got you covered that way with this 2.4 intake for the small block Ford. Now it pulls hard from 1500 RPM all the way up to 65, and it's fairly low profile, so it'll clear most hoods. Of course, if you need carburetors and linkage, Edelbrock's got you covered there too, so you can spend time enjoying this instead of trying to piece it all together. Most everybody knows that headers are important if you want peak performance out of your engine, and adding an H-pipe to the exhaust system gives you that much more benefit. Well, Hedman headers went one step further with their X-pipe kit. Now, this thing equalizes pressure in both cylinder banks, just like an H-pipe, but because of the X design, gives you much more flow, and that equals more power on the top end. And since this thing's universal, heck, you can make it fit just about anything. And for $250, that is money well spent. Today's question: Dear Trucks, would you please explain fuel injection to me? I hear people talking about TBI, TPI, MPI, MCI, AT&T. No one seems to be able to give me a straight answer. Just a brief explanation in layman's terms on the differences in styles of injections would sure make it a lot easier for me to decide what is best for my truck. Thanks, Matt. Well, Matt, I definitely understand your confusion. Now, basically, there's two types of fuel injection. You have TBI, throttle body injection, and you have MPI, multi-port injection. Of course, there's variations of each of those, but here's how they work. Now, with the throttle body injection, the throttle body sits right down on top of the manifold like a carburetor. You've got two injectors that blow down through here. Now, the air-fuel mixture goes down through the runners into the head. Now, the fact that that air-fuel mixture runs through the manifold makes this what is called a wet manifold. And of course, a computer controls the injectors. Now, on a multi-port, you can see it looks completely different. It's got a fuel rail that runs down along the top. Then you've got individual injectors, one for each port. Now, these blow fuel right at the back of the valve. This gives you incredible throttle response. Now, up here, all that runs through the manifold is air, so this is known as a dry manifold. Now, as far as performance goes, the multi-port is far superior to the throttle body, but it's also a lot more expensive, and it's trickier to hook up. There's a lot more pieces involved. Now, you may go to a swap meet somewhere, come across an old Hillborn mechanical fuel injection. These things are awesome, they're legendary, they look cool. Well, they're mechanical because they don't use a computer, they use a fuel pump, so they're really easy to hook up. However, they're designed primarily for a racing application, so unless you know how to convert these to the street, I would definitely suggest staying away from it. Now, Matt, I hope this gives you kind of an outline in layman's terms on how a fuel injection works. That's going to do it for today. Here's what we got for you next week.
Stacey slices into Project High Sierra by cutting a big old hole in the roof. But he's not crazy, it's for a sliding ragtop. Then we'll get behind the wheel of Chevy's new and very unique Avalanche for a test drive. And finally, a viewer's question about swapping transmissions, going from an automatic to a stick. That's all next week on Trucks. For a VHS copy of today's show, call toll-free 1-877-853-7260. Show videos are just $12.95 plus shipping and handling. Trucks is an RTM production.